What's up, Dad Bod Nation? Dad Bod Steve. Got another great story for you guys today. Someone who has gone through a lot of resiliency in her life and now has a lot of success. And she is here to share that success and how she is doing today. Everyone, welcome Halo. Halo, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, I really appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Of course, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
So, my name's Haylo. I live in northern Utah. I've been a tattoo artist for 18 and a half years, and I just published my first co author book called The Trajectory Project 2. And I'm so happy to be here to share my story.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again for taking the time. I know we had a couple of dates set up and then we had to change it and you were going to come down to the studio, but then we had to do the Zoom because of some illness going around, right?
Oh,
So
tis the season,
appreciate
friend.
you keeping it. Oh, I know. It's getting terrible. But go ahead and explain, your story, kind of get into the beginning of how where life was and what kind of different situations you went through and kind of got you to where you're at now.
So, growing up in Utah, we the Mormon culture here. I won't say all Mormons because that's way too harsh. I grew up in a Mormon family, high expectations in that's just what you do type of mentality. My parents were young and naive, and I will say before I preface into anything, one of the biggest things I learned in my adulthood that really has helped me in a lot of my, challenges. I don't like the word struggle. I feel like struggle is a choice, but challenges are inevitable. But in my challenges, I've learned that I was watching my parents grow up right alongside me. And as much as that was really hard as a child to feel like there were just double standards and, what people said versus what they did, being in a religious culture, I was a really quiet child. Some people find that really hard to believe, but I was a really quiet kid. I am kid number 4 of 5. My oldest sibling passed shortly after birth. So being raised, I had an older brother, older sister, and a younger brother. So I just got to stay quiet. My older siblings talked the most, and I didn't really have to do much. So I had a lot of thinking time and a lot of quiet time. And at a young age, I started drawing my ideal life. It was a way to kind of shut out all of the, traumas in my childhood, which I didn't even know were traumas at the time because, we all think our childhood is normal, right? Like, doesn't everybody have an Aunt Sally and an Uncle Mark? Like, we all think that, right? I don't know about you. I did. So, that's what I thought was normal until like I made friends and I moved around a lot. I've moved more times than I am years old. And so when I just learned not everybody was raised that way, I just started paying attention and I realized, a lot of things that go into a lot of religious culture of that's just what you do, there was no questioning to it, and I'm a questioner. I'm a why and how and what and all these things, and so I was kinda labeled the rebel in my family for that, and I'm totally fine with it. A lot of people always talk about the white sheep or the black sheep in the family. I'm just the lone wolf, and I'm good with it. I like it. Um, but, I've went to several different public schools. I was homeschooled for a number of years. So being in different high schools and junior highs, I got to know a lot of people. Um, I was kind of friends with everybody. Everybody knew who I was. Everyone knew who my name. I had cousins that went to the schools I went to. So I would say I had a lot of friends in school. School was a fun experience for me. I just wanted to get into the real world. So my senior year in high school, I still had my first childhood dog that I got at 12 years old. His name was Cody. He's a Siberian Husky. I bought him when I won $1,000 in an art contest when I was 12. So me and my dog Cody, we lived in an apartment my senior year, even though I worked full time. Like I even hired a friend to come and let him out in the middle of the day. Like responsibility hit me really hard. So working full time, having an apartment and going through high school, a lot of choices to be made. I ended up graduating from an alternative high school just because where I was working full time, they said in order to graduate, I need to be able to get all my credits in, and if I wanted to do them by working, I would have to go to an alternative. Totally fine with me. I have no shame in that. Kind of cute little side story though. I did send that alternative high school to national competition with my art piece and the reflections. That was a little kind of, fun fact about that. I've been an artist my pretty much my whole life. Started drawing when I was 2 years old. My artwork is my escape. I would draw things that I wanted, the life I wanted, the animals I wanted. I grew up total horse girl. So horses have always been my muse. Fell in love with Siberian Huskies at a young age because they look like wolves. So anyway, that's kind of, a little bit of preface of my childhood into adulthood. Um, but sorry, I get a little sidetracked sometimes. I was looking at my book and kind of focusing on the story in there.
You're good. I'm gonna follow up. I'm gonna say, nothing wrong with an alternative high school. That's where I work, right? I'm a principal of an alternative high school right now, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, that's not a real high school diploma." Yes, it is. It has the same exact requirements as a high school, minus a few elective classes, right? And we are actually getting bigger and bigger in the community now. So, alternative high schools are the way to go for a lot of kids nowadays because traditional school doesn't work for everybody, and I preach that all the time. So that is awesome that you took them to a national level too, because I think alternative high schools need to be recognized for a lot more than what they are recognized for now. So that is awesome. So you after you graduated high school and everything, let's go there. What was life like and kind of what dragged you into the direction that you went?
So I was a very independent young teenager. I was 18 the first week of my senior year. So, just to kind of preface to people, I I wasn't a minor living on my own. I was actually a legal adult, so I could check myself in and out of school. And honestly, I loved the alternative school. I know you're right; it does have a bad rap. You hear the word alternative, and people instantly go to like troublemakers and things like that, and that's simply not true. Maybe some of them, but for me, because I had been through 3 high schools, um, I still kept friends from the school that I went to the most as far as, like, junior high to high school with the same kids. Those were my friends I really kept in contact with, so that was the high school I went to as my high school reunion. Um, but once I had hit 3 high schools, I was really exhausted with school because of the constant change in what we were learning, what we were testing on, so my grades were really up and down. Um, I never got a chance to letter in art like I wanted to because you had to go to a school for a full year, and I never did that, which is fine. I still competed in all the school art shows and, as I said, the reflections. So um, that didn't change when I went to an alternative school. I still entered, and they actually had a ceremony for me on my behalf to say we have never won anything. And Halo took us to national competition with her art piece, and I still have it. The theme was I hold in my hand, and I painted a horse running through the clouds, and it looked like there's a hand like this underneath it in the clouds. And in the horse are the shapes of all the continents of the world. And so to me, horses are like, my world at that age, and in your hand you can hold the world, based on your perspective and belief system. And I believed at 18 I had the world in my hands, ready to go. Um, I worked full time for a major credit card company. Um, and after a while, I realized I really hated working on phones. So I had a friend who got me into dog grooming because I love animals. So I worked as a dog groomer for many years. I think a little over 10 years I worked as a dog groomer. Um, my art was still kind of something I did on the side. I drew portraits of people's pets when I was a groomer, especially pets that had passed away. And about that time is when I started getting into motorcycles, and sport bikes, and, like, in the line of friend of a friend of a friend, like, I knew this person kind of in passing. I'll never say we're close because that's not true. I just knew of him. He was close to the group of, people that I started riding motorcycles with, and he unfortunately passed away in a really tragic motorcycle accident, and, I was asked if I'd draw a portrait of him for his funeral. His name was Ricky Kobus, and when I presented that portrait to his family, all of his friends at his wake were like, "Oh, do you do tattoos? Do you do ink?" I'm like, No, I've never really thought about it." At the time, I was 23, and they're like, "You would be really, really good at it." And I'm thinking, as much as I love working with animals, not getting bit every day, that sounds great. So one of his friends, who I also knew from high school, who actually called me Halo in high school, and that just has stuck ever since. I've gone by Halo ever since. Um, Introduced me to his artist. Unbeknownst to me, I thought I was going to one of his, appointments that day. And back then, I mean, I'm going to really age myself, but we didn't have camera phones. So all of my artwork were pictures I physically took, printed out, and put in a book. And I kept it on my coffee table as like a coffee table book, and he grabbed that, unbeknownst to me, before we left. And when we walked in the door, I'm thinking I'm just going to be a fly on the wall, watch whatever happens. And I hear, "Hey, this is the girl I told you about." And dude, my heart just dropped. When I say dropped, I literally was just like, ugh. And I'll never forget the artist looked at me, grabbed my portfolio, and he said, "If I see line drawings of Marvin the Martian in this book, I'm kicking both your asses out." And I froze. And he looked at all of my real life human and animal drawings and kind of did the whole like, look at me inquisitively, look down, look up, look down, look up, turned and kind of thumbed through all of them and asked me, what makes me think that I would be good at this, because I visibly had no tattoos, which I confirmed I had zero. So, in order to get into the industry and start my apprenticeship, I had to tattoo myself. Not my proudest moment of my life. It was more emotional than anything. But that was how I got my foot in the door. Was I will say people believed in me more than I believed in myself. At the time I was at my first marriage. Have no shame in how many times I've been married, guys. I was in my first marriage, and he was very, very physically and mentally abusive to me. And when he found out I had got this apprenticeship, he said I was just going to fail because I fail at everything in life. This man was very, well, I can't call him man, this overgrown boy child, was just really, really ruthless to me. And this was an opportunity that I realized I needed to think about myself, um, and get out of an abusive situation. um, I had grown up with abuse, so part of me thought it was natural, but I still remember that part of me as a little kid that would observe and be quiet and watch how things were. I knew it wasn't right. And so that was kind of my gateway of I felt like I had an opportunity to make something of myself. And I did. I packed up everything, filed a restraining order, and filed divorce, and I left. And I still continued to groom dogs for a while because that paid for my apprenticeship. Um, I started tattooing kind of part time in my apprenticeship. My apprenticeship wasn't really traditional because my space was brand new. So even putting the word out there, it was you were still texting and having like those one-on-one, interactions with people. But the moment that I dropped the bomb that I started tattooing, I had a line out the door of people who were like, "Oh my gosh, you used to draw in high school. I just want to be one of the first people you ever tattooed." And so I will say the confidence in the people around me was far superior than my confidence in myself, just because I allowed people to strip me of that most of my life. And when I say I allowed, there is a power of choice. I read a book called The Four Agreements. If anybody has not read it, go get it, read it again till it really makes sense. Not sure if you're familiar with what this book is. It's my favorite book. First year I got it, I read it 9 times in 1 year just because I really wanted to absorb it. The 4 agreements are, be impeccable with your word, never take anything personally, never assume, and always do your best. I don't know about you, Steve, but had I been taught that at a young age, I could have avoided so much heartache and stress and anger and compromised relationships just based on just those 4 things not being made clear to me. Of all of it comes down to we have a power of choice. And if we choose to believe what people are saying or we choose not to, that's still our choice. Someone can tell you, "Hey, you look awful today." That's cool. But you also have to have value in their opinion, and you also have to give value to their opinion. And do you care if I share a little like kind of side metaphor with that?
No, not at all. Go ahead. Whatever you want to share.
Okay. So a metaphor I like to share with people is, let's say me and you are hanging out, we're spending time, we're having a good time, and all of a sudden you feel really nauseous, really sick to your stomach, right? Well, you don't have enough time to get up and move, and you end up just bleh all over me, right? Like ruins my shirt, ruins my outfit. One thing I ask people, so if you vomit on me, does that now make it my vomit? And like, well, no. Okay, so I've got one of two choices, right? I can wear this vomit all day long on my clothes and say, "Oh my God, look what he did to me. He threw up all over me. It's making me sick and it's burning my skin. And look, it ruined my clothes." I could be all dramatic about you throwing up on me, right? Or I can take my shirt off, throw it away, take a shower, and be like, "Dude, you good? You all right?" You vomiting on me had nothing to do with me. It came from you. Engulfed inside of you, and the only way you could relieve yourself of this pressure and this sickness and this discomfort was to throw up, right? I just happened to be in the way. People's words and actions are the same principle, right? Just because someone throws their opinion, throws their words, throws their emotions at you, doesn't make them yours. But it had to be something that they identified with inside of them in order to project it onto you. The only way it becomes true is if you believe them. So if you were to throw up on me and say, now that's your problem and your mess, well, if I believed it, I'd still be walking around mess and a victim. Or I can say, no, I can choose not to carry this. Same as people's words, same as people's emotions. People, the words that they say, we are all just projectors, and everyone around us is a white screen. Whatever we're projecting came from us, no matter what it is. There's another book I'd love to preface with this. It's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And she talks about every human emotion and every human ability we all possess. And when we repress those things out of fear, they grow, right? So, like this one woman in her audience openly admitted that she's scared to be a bitch. Her words, not mine. And she said, why? And she goes, because I feel like it would ruin friendships and relationships. And she goes, all right, cool. What if you had a home building project and you were paying a contractor and his crew? And after 3 days, you came by and his crew is just pissing around, doing nothing, but they're charging you for the time they've been there. Maybe dropping that bitch card might get some things done. And she's like, oh, so yeah, there's a time and place where all of these emotions and human actions take place. But remember, just because somebody accuses you of something, it's nothing to do with you. It came from them. And if they recognize it in you, what does that say about them? Right? So I even had someone like go off on me several years ago on how horrible of a person I am. And I'm a narcissist and I'm self centered and I'm all these things, blah, 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 blah. And I just kind of paid attention, like, oh, okay, oh, okay. I think they were trying to get me to fight back with them. And I'm like, I have no fight for you. These are your feelings, your thoughts, your actions. But if you have felt this way about me all this time, what does that say about you for keeping me as company? And they hated that. And I just said, hey, thanks for your opinion. Thanks for your thoughts. Friendship's over. It's fine. I respected that's how they felt. But a part of me knows it's their inner recognition of things they hate about themselves that I'm not afraid to be or represent or have. Just because they labeled who I am as those things doesn't mean I am those things. But if I am those things to that person, to dismiss them from my life, I'm very okay with it. Sometimes the trash takes itself out.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think people really just want to fight, you know what I mean? Or they just want a reaction out of somebody. And so being able to resist that actually makes them more mad in a lot of
Right.
ways.
I believe that, and guess what? We're all guilty of it, friend. Like, all of us have done it, we've all done it, like, that's why, like, we even prefaced before we started today, we all need that space, right? Whether it's a therapist or that one friend we can just go unleash hell and high water on. Even some of the most successful mentors I've had in my personal and business life says they're not all, high and mighty and everything's so, like, positive and everything all the time. They're like, "No, you should see me when I drive. I still get road rage. I still, wanna throw a drink at somebody who doesn't get my order right, but my choice is not to do it." So we all do. It's all human, and I embrace that I'm just as human as the next person, but if you hate all my human that's fine. I'm okay with that. I just wanna grow. So I always take people's, critique, whether it's harsh or polite or wonderful, hey, thanks. Like, I just take it all as a compliment. That's how I grow. I want to grow, whether that person's in my life or not. As somebody who's a very deeply spiritual person, I'm not religious, but I'm very, very spiritual. I believe that my higher power heard conversations I did not. So when he removes these people from my life, I'm grateful. I may not understand it. I may go through a mourning process, right? Friendship divorces are hard. But at the same time, the freedom I feel once those people are gone from my life is an elevation of thank you. I could have never done that myself. I really love to believe in people and love people and care about people, but I'm not always the best judge of character for, who I keep around that way. Just because, again, in the being raised in the Mormon culture, it was a people pleasing, right? You say one thing to their face and say something else to them when they're gone. We're nice on Sunday. We're assholes on Monday. Like, and again, it's a Utah culture thing, and I'm sure everyone in Utah listening to this right now is shaking their head like, "Yep, I believe it. I've been there. I've seen it. Preach."
I think it's a common thing in a lot of places too. You know, yeah, the common term that you're thinking of is Sunday Mormon, right? Because
Yes,
you know I'm LDS still, right? And I actually talked in our ward about this. Like, are you nice to people just because you're told to on Sunday, and then not nice to them on the weekend, or are you nice to people because you're genuine? Like that was actually in my talk, and it is a common thing to be a Sunday Mormon, right? And I think this newer generation is getting out of that trend, to be honest. I think it was more of our 80s baby, 90s baby kind of thing, and it's kind of getting a lot better, but I totally see that with what you're saying. I've experienced it 40 plus years, right?
same.
So definitely seen it. But let's go back into, so you got divorced, right? You started getting into tattooing, and how did those choices help you kind of keep going in your life there? Because when we talked before, it was a lot of I've owned businesses, I've helped other people with businesses, I've done this. You know, how have these choices and not letting the negativity in your life like lead you these ways?
I appreciate you circling back. I can get a little scatterbrained. That's definitely part of my personality. So as I started tattooing, I did leave my first spouse. I met my second spouse while I was tattooing. Um, and shortly after him and I got married, I was still doing both tattooing and dog grooming. He was in a really bad motorcycle accident on my motorcycle, 6 weeks after we got married. Um, he ended up, broken ribs. He ripped 2 of the 3 major nerves in his brachial plexi. For people who aren't familiar with that, it's your scapula. He never used his right arm again. He was a mechanic by trade. Um, Real quick, I'm gonna preface something to see if your audience can kind of follow me on this. Steve, have you seen Pet Cemetery?
I have not seen it for so many years. It's been a long time. But like when I was younger and it was on TV, yes.
And so you're familiar with the story.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say, um, that story, Pet Cemetery, there's something to it. My spouse, after his accident, when both his lungs had collapsed, because he had, according to him and people around him, he had hit a rock. It had launched his bike over a ravine. He landed. The bike landed on him. Um, he would have died on impact had he not worn his helmet that day. Which he never wore gear. I'm the one who told him, well, if you're going to ride with my group, they will insist you wear gear or they leave you behind. And so I was gonna go that day, but because I had to work, I decided not to, and I just did the, go have a day with the boys and have fun. So when I got a call, I went up to IHC and they were telling me all of his injuries. So I got to see him momentarily before they went back and put tubes in his lungs. Um, and he asked me to grab his hand, and like it just looked like shredded meat hanging onto bone with a little bit of skin, and it wasn't bleeding or anything. That was a weird part, but of course that's how like I remember it. Like the trauma side really represses a lot of things. So I kind of remember different details each time I tell the story. And then some of them go back to being repressed again. So um I grabbed his hand and squoze it and he's like, I can't feel your hand, please squeeze my hand. Well, that's when they told me they're like, the nerves have been damaged. And nerves when they are severed, it's kind of like thinking of like pulling apart a piece of yarn and it just kind of you can't make their way back. So I learned a lot about nerves. And 2 of the 3 being gone, he lost the use of his right arm. But what they said would take a routine 2-hour surgery, he was under for over 8 hours because they kept losing him. He kept flatlining and they brought him back. And I didn't even know this, or I just have no memory of them telling me. Um, but after he was in the hospital for 29 days, 9 in the ICU, he was never the same anymore. He kind of felt stripped of his identity and slipped into bad depression. And I will say, this is very vulnerable. He no longer was the person I married mentally and emotionally. His body was still there, but he was not. He became very, very aggressive, very angry, for good reason. He lost the use of his right arm and he was a mechanic by trade. And he didn't want to live anymore. And he would tell me that. And it became a monthly thing of trying to stop him from taking his own life. And finally, after almost a year since his accident, he finally succeeded. And I found him on our back porch 90 seconds too late. I had heard the sound of the shot as I pulled into our uh, complex because we lived in a condo. Our neighbor heard it too. We thought people were celebrating fireworks because it was a week before the 4th of July. So to this day, I'm a little iffy with fireworks, because some years I'm good with it, it's fine, and I focus on the beauty of the firework and the color and the fun. And some days the sound of that pop puts me back into that day of what I saw and what I found. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And he had left a
And I'm so
note.
sorry you had to go through that too. Like, sorry for interrupting you, but that's something hard for anybody to go through because nobody wants to find someone they love in that situation. So I'm sorry that, you know, you had to go through that. And sometimes that's what shapes our choices, right? Or that impacts us in a way. It could be either negative or positive, just like what you were saying before. It's how did you take that, right? So again, sorry for interrupting.
No,
That's
thank
part of
you.
the lag that we have with here on that. But go ahead and continue with that. So you were saying that you found a note.
He did say his goodbyes. So even when personnel arrived, they pulled me aside and like we went through his phone. He said goodbye to people, asked me how long he'd been suicidal, and I'm like, dude, I had the cops here last week. But because he wouldn't admit to it, there's nothing they could do. They couldn't have him committed. Um, so for me, I believe he didn't want to survive because he would pit me and his family against each other. Without going into detail and being respectful of what they experienced and what they feel. Um, but I will say after he passed that night, I started getting death threats. I was accused of taking his life. And to this day, that is what they believe. The firearm was in his dad's name. I never touched it. I was in a state of shock. I just felt like I was underwater. And I even asked the, cop who escorted me from the is considered a crime scene. I said, "Am I in, what's my next what do I do from here?" And I said, "Am I in trouble?" I didn't, that shock was so heavy, I couldn't even sense reality. And he goes, like, "Sweetheart, if you were in trouble, you'd be in the back." Because you're not. He's like, "We just want to find out, your perspective, what happened, what you saw." And they did all the things. They checked me for GSR, they checked my clothing, and they said, "We've ruled you out." He said his goodbyes. This was definitely a suicide. But his family was very shameful of, "You don't do that," and they believed he would never do that. So there's no way he did, and it had to have been me. And to this day, they think I got away with that. And I've just had to let it go. It's one of those, don't take it personally. If that's what they need to sleep at night, who am I to take that from them? I don't feel the need to defend myself. I know what I saw. I know what I experienced and what lives with me for the rest of my life that I saw that day. And I realized just because that was his choice, he didn't want to be here anymore, doesn't mean that I need to allow that choice to forever ruin my life or you know, my direction, where I wanted to go. And of course, we live in a world that when if you're a female and your spouse dies, they expect you to mourn the rest of your life and wander this world aimlessly without them, because the judgment that comes when your spouse dies as a woman is lifelong. Everything you do, everything you post, everything you wear, any place you go, God forbid you smile again. That means you never loved them, you never cared, yada, yada, yada. To say that that was the ultimate test of don't take shit personally, that was the ultimate test, is to let people have their opinions because everyone has one. So I look at widows in such a different light. Everybody's going through, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the weird at funerals. No one's in their right mind, but man, people are so effing judgmental to others at funerals. Look at what they're wearing. Can you believe they act like? Can you believe they said that? Because nobody is in a place of thinking in their right mind. Everybody's coming from a place of pain, and pain is ruthless, right? Pain has no filter. And I realized they're all hurting and suffering same as I was in their own way, and that's okay. I wanted to heal. I wanted to recover. I was only 25 years old when that happened, and I did not want to allow my life to end because of his choice, and that comes into the power of choice. And choosing to move on came with forever judgment, and I'm okay with that. Um, I'm okay that I survived something like that because I don't believe, we may go through the ends of, feeling like we have extended what we are capable of, but we are never pushed further than our faith. And I truly believe that as a conviction of I was meant to experience that because my higher power felt that I was strong enough to. I don't feel it was a punishment. I felt that it was just a stepping stone to grow from because I am so against signing your own contract out. I'm trying not to use words that'll like make that algorithm all messed up. But that is one thing I will tell people about, especially youth, which they don't have kids yet, right? Like, so they always say, "Oh, well, when you have kids, you'll understand." That's dude, that's a bunch of BS. You can't put the youth in a place where you'll understand one day. You're not connecting with them, right? And kids who are troubled or have deep depression or have, thoughts of taking their own life, that doesn't do anything for them. It didn't for me, And so I like to compare that kind of story. A lot of kids have their own pet. Um, Dogs are the common one, some have cats. And so something I preface, because apparently, parents think that I have this magical wand that I can talk to their kids because of what I've went through and it'll change their mind, which thank you. I'm glad you have that much faith in me. But it really comes down to what that child wants. And I give them an example of, let's say, your dog Fido, you love him, you feed him, he's your best buddy, your best friend. I mean, 'cause we have ESAs everywhere you turn, and people have service animals now. Like pets are huge, right? People are having pets more than they're having kids now. And I ask them, what if, you know, everything you did and felt for Fido, but he wanted to go run into traffic? What would you do? And if you kept stopping him from running into traffic and you were crying and upset saying, Fido, I love you. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? That's the only way I've been able to really break through of teaching kids. That's what it's like as a parent. That's what it feels like. You want your love to save people, which I'm sorry to all the Disney fans out there. Your love doesn't save or change people. It won't. They have to love themselves and they have to want to change. You can't want something more for someone than they want for themselves. And I've seen a lot of people, not just teens, not just youth, really pivot on that and see things a little bit differently. And then tomorrow, a little bit more. And when they realize they only know the world without them, they have no idea what the world looks like to see them in it. And so when they look at that perspective, if their dog decided, I just don't want to be here anymore and stepped out into traffic, that is what the world goes through when you decide that you want to remove yourself from this life. It doesn't end your pain, it just gives it to everybody else who loves you.
One of the things that we say, and this is like same topic, but kind of on the side, is a lot of the people I podcast with have gone through recovery, right? And most of them have gone through recovery multiple times. And I was podcasting with Brooke Rushton and another girl named Kaya. We talked about how you can't force someone to go to recovery either. Like, no matter how much your family loves you, you can force them to go to recovery, but it might not work. And they have to want it in order to make it successful, right? They have to want to be clean. And when I was podcasting with Kaya, that's what she said. She said, the reason why it worked is because I actually took it seriously and I actually wanted it to work. That's how it is in life for anything. A lot of the kids at my school, a lot of the parents, they'll come up to me and say, hey, thank you so much for everything you did for our kid. And I'll be like, I didn't do anything. They came, they worked, they put in the effort. I just gave them the opportunity, but they still had to do it. Like, they everyone has to put forth the effort to be successful in life, right? They have to put forth what they want. And it's not just a handed thing. And when parents say that to me, like, thank you so much for what you did, it's like, hey, you're welcome. But your child is the one who did this. Your child is the one who actually put forth the work. They came to school, even though they didn't want to, and they're the ones who did it. And so I see that a big correlation in life, right? Just like what you were saying, if you want it, you've got to go get it. If you really want it, you won't let failure get in your way, right? You will always say, okay, instead of looking at failure as something that's negative, I will now say, what stopped me from getting to this point? How can I overcome that? And what's the next step to keep going?
I agree. And it's one of those things, instead of throwing happiness and comfort based on our interpretation of happiness and comfort, we're offering them tools rather than trying to go the insanity rate of trying over and over and over again. And a lot of people, especially in Utah, use the shame and the guilt to get people to change, and it just won't. It just makes them feel worse. And you're right, they have to have that inner belief in themselves. Yeah, sometimes it takes a stranger having that. I'll admit that yeah, people who are not constantly rattle canning in my ear had a bigger impact on me, because they cared for me for no reason. There was no obligation to. They cared because they simply just cared. And that to me, I think, is a huge impact, especially when dealing with youth that are troubled, is realizing I don't have to care about you. I chose to. and they don't need me to care about them, but knowing that it was a choice, not an obligation, it hits harder. And that's youth all the way up to, your dying day. When you realize that, back to that word choice, when I chose to care about you to these young kids, it hits them harder versus, well, I'm here because I had to. I'm here because I signed up for this job or I'm getting paid. Or, when people say, oh, your problems are above my pay grade, kids count on us to not give up on them. But they're relentless. And when parents give up on them, especially addict parents who give up on them and almost do a reverse role. I'm reading a book right now called The Body Keeps the Score, if you're familiar with that. And it does talk about how all of, these traumas and things that develop out of those early stages of their relationship with their mother. And, an addict who is going through their own, hell and high water doesn't know how to be a safe space for a child. So that child has always had to make a safe space for themselves. And it really comes down to when somebody who doesn't, because there are some people straight up, if you are not blood, you don't matter to them. And to me, blood makes you related. How you treat people makes you family. I will never allow somebody to say, "Oh, because we're family, that I am obligated to put up with your shenanigans and your crap." No, nor should you have to put up with mine. And I believe that when you create that feeling of family with people because you care, that's where true change has the highest potential.
No, that's totally true. You always have to be aware of those bosses that say, "Hey, you're like family to me," right? Because then they try to use that to manipulate. But family is something like, this is gonna sound dumb, but Fast and the Furious, right? What
Love
does he
that
always
show.
say? Yeah, what does he always say? You're family. He doesn't say because you're my brother or we have the same mom. He says because you're family. And it's because they bonded on something that was similar and they came to similar thing or they went through something together, right? And that made them family. So definitely agree with that on that end. So let's go to your all the things you're doing. Let's explain all the things you're doing. So you wrote a book, right? And you told me so many things before, like you're a tattoo artist, right? And I see a lot of your posts on that. We became Facebook friends a little while ago, and so love seeing new ink. I've got my sleeves, my legs, my chest all done. And you've been working with people with businesses. You've been helping people get out of financial sticky situations. What kind of led you to all of these different things, and what keeps you going with all of those?
Passion. I love people. We live in a world where people so easily say, quote unquote, I hate people or I don't care. I hate those terms. I despise them,
I,
honestly.
I've been guilty of saying that, like, I hate people, or the older I get, the more I don't like, especially just mainly when I drive. I'll have to say that. And I've been a driver's ed teacher for 17 years, and I always tell the kids, like, don't drive like typical Utah drivers. Come on. These are the things they do. Don't do this. But as I'm driving, I'm like, the older I get, the less patient I am with people. So I'm totally guilty of saying some of those things.
I actually saw a video recently that you might really like then, and it showed a person driving and it kind of pulls from them of their frustrations and what they're going through on the road. And it shows it like coming up over all the cars and it puts a label on each one of the cars of what each one of those persons going through as it's in traffic. One said, dog got killed by a car this morning, lost their dad to cancer last night. Um, child is struggling with addiction, like all these things. And it really puts in perspective back to the 4 agreements, even when you're driving, don't take it personally. Like, the road rage here in Utah is all about people taking it so personally, but here's the thing, I'll be the first to admit, leaving a hospital after a loved one died, I'm not in my right mind, right? Leaving a vet clinic after I've had to cremate a pet, I'm not in my right mind, and I'm not trying to be a dick or a jerk when I'm driving, but it's never about me. Like, I even took my dog. I have a little Pomeranian, and, I have 2 Huskies and a Pomeranian. I took him to groom him at Tractor Supply just before Christmas. And as I went to walk in, the people in the car next to me are like, "We were in line first." And they had these 2 big husky dogs. And I'm like, "Mm, okay." And so they go in there, they start, dude, there are 6 dogs in this dog wash, and there's only 2 tubs, so it's packed. Remember, I'm a former professional, so I have like my dryer with me and just sitting there with my little guy, and I'm just waiting. And I told them, I said, with everybody here, I said, I bring my own dryer because the dryers here are like literally going, right? Like, I mean, it's going to take you longer to cool your food than you are, going to blow dry your dog. And I told myself with my high pressure dryer, I said, your dogs can be dry in like 20 minutes. I'm more than happy, after I get done with my little Pomeranian. to help you guys blow out your dogs." And she goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "Why don't you go ahead and go," and because they already have one dog in. It was a grandmother, a grown daughter, and a little boy. And she's like, "You know what? Just go ahead and go in front of us, and as soon as you're done, yeah, if you'll help us, that would be great." I'm like, "Sure." All of us want to get out of here. It's, almost Christmas Eve. So I did. I bathed my dog. I didn't even comb him. I blow dried him, put him back in his little backpack. It's a dog backpack, by the way, just so people aren't coming at me. You put your dog in a backpack? Yes, it's 4 dogs. Put him in there. They bathed their dogs. I blow dried both of them. We got out of there at a great time, and um, the adult daughter and her son, had the dogs outside the door, and me and the grandma, she's the one who snapped at me earlier, were cleaning up the mess and vacuuming and squeegeeing and, washing everything down, and she's like, "No, I really feel bad that I snapped at you." I'm like, "It's okay. It's Christmas Eve. It's people are stressed." And I said, "I didn't come here in a hurry. I didn't come here with an agenda. I was fine to wait, and it's okay. Like, you whatever you were upset about when you got here had nothing to do with me." And she goes, "I wish I could be more like you." And it just kind of hit me of, wow, just that little bit of patience paid off. Like, I didn't know what was going on with their day. And I was fine that they can snap me. It doesn't mean I have to snap them back. Like, right. That's their metaphorical vomit that they threw all over me. And I just took it off, and that's okay. And just went about my day. And to know that I influenced somebody that night, and the benefit is immediately after. I know this is a long side story. So I was in a car accident a year ago. I still can't lift like more than 30 pounds. And I realized I'm out of dog food. I forgot to get dog food while I was there. And I'm like, well, normally they have somebody there I can ask. My husband had the kids out Christmas shopping, so he wasn't with me. Um, and so I went back to Tractor Supply, and as luck would have it, right? Like, being kind to the people in front of me and just being a good person, even when they were kind of snappy. I came around that corner and there were two gentlemen in the aisle where my dog food is, and it's like 50, 60 pounds. And I look at them, they look at me, I look at a bag of dog food, look back at them, and I'm like, "Could I ask a favor?" And he goes, "Don't tell me you're going to try to lift that bag yourself." And I said, "I'm still recovering. I can't lift heavy. Would you mind grabbing that bag of dog food for me?" Not only did he grab it, he carried it outside to my car, loaded it for me, and he's like, "Do you have somebody to unload it?" I'm like, "Yeah, when my husband gets home from Christmas shopping with the kids, he'll unload it." But that kindness was immediately filtered back to me, right? And I use the word kindness very lightly, only because I think kindness can be kind of a double-bladed sword. People who want to take advantage of others will count on you to be kind and the bigger person in those scenarios. But in this one, I feel the only way that I can describe, like, what happened that night was a show of human compassion, caring, and just being genuinely good people to each other. And so that was a really good example for me of, we discussed this before we started recording, but it's like I like staying in my own lane because there's never any traffic, right? So even if you're in traffic, the guy who totally T-boned me a year ago and caused my accident and all my injuries had nothing to do with me. He was just going about his day, whatever was in his head. I didn't yell at him, I didn't scream at him, I didn't even get out. He never came and said anything to me, but at the same time, it had nothing to do with me. Was I hurt from it? Sure. But nothing was going to resolve, and there was no healing that was going to take place by being angry at his decision. I wanted to heal more than I wanted to do anything else.
It's like that saying that's been going around on Facebook for probably 3 or 4 years now, right? Be nice to everybody because you don't know what they're going through. And so it's really a good saying because someone might just be having a bad day and then they come off like they're just a jerk, right? And you just never know. So totally goes along with that.
And here's the thing, I'm rarely allotted that when I'm having a bad day. Um, I don't know if I can really recollect, and it's not because I'm picking and choosing memories, that I've had a bad day and someone just said, "Hey, are you good?" Nope, they took it personally and whatever I said and did. Like, I've kind of been raised my whole life, I'm not allowed to have a bad day, but I always have to be so understanding when everybody else has a bad day. There were several years that it made me sour to it. Of I had a very big chip on my shoulder of, you know what, you're an asshole to me, I'm gonna be an asshole back. And now I believe some people won't ever understand how they're treating you if that mirror is not shown to them. That's their growth, right? So constantly being the bigger person is somebody who's just always a dick, doesn't serve them, doesn't serve you. Now I wouldn't say I just want to go out and just be a dick to people and they should be understanding, but I've rarely been a lot of that in my own life. And I think instead of letting that make me bitter of having I was watching the Mickey Mouse Christmas Carol when Scrooge is like, "No one's ever shown me generosity." Well, I really try to keep that. Well, just because people aren't allotting that to me doesn't mean I can't give that of myself. And if I use that as a cop out, well, then that speaks volumes of me. So, can I be understanding? Sure, but I also set some boundaries because you may be having a bad day. I don't have to take it personally, but I also don't have to keep being subject to it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's I don't know. I personally think social media is ruining how we communicate to each other too, because you see people getting mad for the littlest things, and people think, oh, that's okay. I'm going to throw a fit because somebody looked at me the wrong way. Or, love the guy, love Joey Swole, love his gym positivity. Somebody walked in front of my camera, so now I have to yell at them. It's like, no, that's life. My wife, she gets mad at me, but she loves it when I say, whenever anything happens, I say, it is what it is. And she's always, whenever something happens and I'm calm about it and she's a little more upset, she'll say, don't say it is what it is because I know that's what you're going to say. But then, at the same time, she also kind of goes, well, there's nothing we can do about it. So we just got to move on. And that's one of those things that we talk about with the kids a lot too. Kids will get mad very easily. And sometimes they try to get someone mad, to see a reaction because they're gaslighting somebody. Kid goes out in the hallway, starts punching lockers, and I'll take him on a walk or I'll talk to him. And first thing I say is, hey, you can't control other people. You can control how you react, but you can't control what other people do. And we have great conversations about it and we talk about it and come up with resolutions of, oh, if someone pisses you off, walk out, go get a drink, take 5 minutes out of the classroom, things like that. And I've seen it more and more in my life, especially since I became a principal. Definitely see it more where I have to look at it myself before I can say it to someone else, right? And I've had to learn and grow a ton, and I'm still learning and growing as it is, even after this is my 7th year being in charge of that school, still figuring things out, and I have to try to reflect my behavior to the kids. We can't sit there and say, "Oh, hey, you saw me yelling at this kid for nothing," but you have to be calm. You can't react how I react, right? What's that saying? Don't sin as I sin or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but we have to be consistent in how we act too as adults when it comes to teenagers because like you said, when you were growing up, you saw people preach something, but they lived a totally different thing, right? It was preach, but I'm not going to live that way, right? The
The
hypocrisy
Sunday
of it.
Mormons, yeah.
Yeah, the Sunday Mormons. I mean, I think that's pretty common in a lot of ways, just all
It's
across
just
the
a
world,
saying that
right?
we have here. I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah.
everything in every religion, every culture has it. It's just a saying in Utah that when you say the Sunday Mormons, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just the big thing as adults, we have to say that and say, "Hey, we can't blame anyone anymore." So before we were recording, you talked a lot about the not being a victim, right? It's somebody else's fault all the time, which I think is becoming bigger problem. It's always someone else's fault. I mean, who wants to be wrong? I never want to be wrong, right? But I have to admit when I'm wrong, right? And it's hard for a lot of people. But the whole victimhood thing of it's someone else's fault. Oh, I was oppressed. Oh, someone else did this to me. Oh, because someone on the other side of the world who made the decision, it's affecting me now and I can't change it, and it's all their fault. That's a big thing nowadays where
It's the same as,
we
"Oh,
don't,
they threw up on me," and it's like, "Alright, cool, now what?" Like, so
yeah,
what? Somebody did that to you, but what can you do? Like, you're focusing on what everybody else is doing. But here's the thing, like, I've even like, when you said, you hate being wrong, I found, like, ever since I heard the saying, "Never correct a fool, they'll hate you. Correct a wise person, they'll thank you." I have found so much more value, and I've earned so much respect in my peers and my family and my relationships by thanking them for correcting me rather than defending my position because I'm not going to learn anything. I sure as hell ain't going to grow if I'm always right. Then there's nothing more to learn. And like, I even just finished training of doing non laser tattoo removal. And she said, "You're my first student that just kept saying thank you every time I corrected you." I'm like, because I don't want to develop bad habits. And the fact that you kept saying, "Okay, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing this." I'm like, "Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you." She was watching things I couldn't see and I hadn't imprinted yet, and if I don't thank her for that, I'm not going to be a good pupil to wanna like, would you want me to do your removal if I was the one who fought my instructor on what I was doing right or wrong? No. And so I see there's such a higher value in being corrected. I'm okay to be wrong because the more like think about even in our stories, the moment that the superhero in all of our make believe, fiction says, "I'm sorry, I was wrong," we develop the sense of support and respect for them. Why can't we do that in our own lives? Like, where pride never got me where I wanted to be. Being right all the time never got me where I wanted to be. And being controlling never made me happy. So, why would I keep doing things that don't make me happy, don't get me what I want? Like being a victim and blaming people, like that's something we don't even do in my home. The moment I'm like, who did that? We don't say, oh, they did, they did, they did. It that doesn't go down that way. And, like even my own daughter, if she's like, hey mom, you left that out. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for reminding me of that. I appreciate that. Oh, no problem. So in public, then when she does something and I'm like, hey, why'd you do that? She's like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I didn't mean to. I'll fix that. I'm like, all right, cool, thanks. I don't care what you did wrong. I care what you're going to do to correct it. And that's something I don't think in this culture we focus enough on. Okay, so you're wrong. Well, now what? Okay, so you blamed them. So now what? Like, is blame going to fix the situation? Like, one of my best friends was here with her son, and he's like, oh, that's my mom's fault. I'm like, cool. And blaming her, did the problem change?
That was actually another Sunday talk that I did, was talking about that because I coached high school soccer for years. And there's a video that just came out too. One of the biggest things when you talk to kids when you first begin coaching them, a lot of them will say when you try to correct them on something like, "Hey, I see what you're trying to do, but this is what I want you to do." There's two common answers. One is "I know," or the other one is, "Well, this is what I was trying to do," and they try to make excuses for it, right? And there's a video that came out of this coach. He was like, "Look, just be coachable. Just be
Mhm.
coachable. We're not trying to tear you down. We're trying to help you get better. That's all we're trying to do." That's life too. With our kids, I always tell them like, "No, I don't care if you made a mistake. That's cool, but are you going to fix it? Are you going to learn from it? What made the mistake? Did you you spilled your water? That's okay. Was it just too close to you? Did you wipe it up or did you just walk away, right? And just leave it there and say that's not my problem." One of the biggest things I hear people say, teenagers especially, is, "Well, I didn't mean to, so I don't have to fix it," right? And it's like, no, that's not how life works. Just because you didn't mean to doesn't mean there's not consequences. But it's a big thing of, yeah, it's okay to make a mistake. Failure is such a negative thing when it's not a bad thing. People think like, "Oh, I failed." So what? That's part of life. Everyone fails. It's if you don't fail, then you lived a cushy life because I fail at a lot of stuff, right? And I always tell the kids, I used to teach PE and I always tell them, weightlifting, failure is good. You want to fail. If you're not failing at weights, you
Break
are
down the
not getting
muscle so it can
stronger.
grow stronger.
Exactly. You're
I did
not
arm
doing it
wrestling for
right.
years. I know exactly, like, that was engraved into me, and you never give your opponent everything you got at practice. Let them think they're winning.
I don't know much about the arm wrestling thing because I don't do that very often, if at all. But definitely, I mean, I think as a society, and a lot of people might say, "What do you know?" Hey, this is just my opinion, right? You don't have to agree with me if you don't want to. But I think the more we can look at something and say, "Oh man, I didn't do that right. What can I do in the next step to not do that again?" Or what can I do to fix that so it doesn't happen again, right? Either one of those, I think if we all did that and took a step back, I think there'd be a lot less fights and a lot
Agreed.
less problems.
Don't take it
Be-
personally. Where can we
yeah,
grow, right?
exactly.
So we don't,
Yep.
we may not like that. That's something I love that I have with my spouse. We're both so dedicated to growth. He's even admitted to me he's worked on being reactive when I correct him on something, but realizing I'm not breaking him down, I'm not insulting him, I don't call him names. It's just like, hey, are you done with that? Can you put it in the sink, please? Instead of being like, reactive to it, it's, well, I just asked him nicely to put something in the sink. And when he's rude to me, instead of reacting and making it a fight, I was like, okay, if I can't even ask nicely, what can I ask? And that'll like pull him back. But he'll do the same to me. Let's be honest. I'm just as guilty, if not double guilty, on doing the same thing, right? That is something him and I both have. We both sin equally, right? We both are habitual in our habits and our bull crap and everything else. But we both want to work on it. We want to evolve. So being right, being wrong, whatever. But what is our avail to grow? And that's what we focus on. You were wrong, I was wrong. You were right, I was right. Like even when we started premarital counseling before we got married, I told him, I said, I don't wanna go to therapy to be told I'm right and you're wrong. I wanna be go to therapy because I wanna be told where we're both wrong so we both can learn to do it right. Neither of us know how to merge a family successfully. He had 3 kids, I have 1. We don't know how to do that. So going to a professional that does and valuing their advice, that's how we grow. You know, you were bringing back like the fail tactic, which is true. And I want to share with you at our book launch out in California the first week of December. I was talking to a girl and I asked her, and I do want you to answer me when I ask you this. When I say who is the best basketball player, the GOAT, whose name comes to your mind?
Michael Jordan
Michael
first.
Jordan, right? Now, Same question. Who's the worst basketball player of all time?
Greg Ostertag.
Great
You
answer.
remember him, right?
Oh, yeah. I grew up with the Bulls always taking us out of the playoffs, and that's when I said I hate basketball. Anyway, don't come at me, guys. It's just not my sport. Um, Technically, it's still Michael Jordan. You know why?
Why is that?
Because those who call him the greatest of all time are focusing on how many baskets he's made, but those who aren't focusing on the baskets he's missed. So, if we're going to be the greatest, we have to also be the worst, right? It's all the shots we missed teach us how to make a shot that we make. So when people say, "Oh, I'm a failure, I'm a this," well, a white belt becomes a black belt because you never gave up. Michael Jordan, I guarantee you, has missed more baskets than he's ever made in his career. But it's what are we focusing on, right? Losers will focus on where you're failing. Winners focus on where you're winning and where you're growing. So when you surround yourself with winners, you'll know because they're emphasizing where you're growing. Where when you hang around with that scarcity mindset, they only want to talk about failure. So when we want to talk about the greatest basketball player of all times, he also is the worst, but he had to be both in order to be recognized as what he wanted. So yes, I broke my arm in an arm wrestling tournament. Here's the thing in arm wrestling, you break your own arm because it's all about your position, staying inside the frame of the body, right? Same as like martial arts. If you go outside the frame of that body, that's not your opponent's fault. So my arm dropped, it's because I got out of position, right? Does that make me a failure? No. It made me so I learned to not go outside the frame of the body. It was a harsh lesson, right? But it made me teachable of how do I stay inside for that to not happen. Downfall is, found out I was pregnant a few weeks later because going under the knife counteracts birth control. My daughter was born 9 months later. So I just have no desire to get back on the table anymore. It's a teeny little part of my life. I don't really have anything to do with it anymore. But I mean, hey, there's for people who are watching, there's the gnarly scar. It was
There's the
actually,
scar.
it was actually filmed. It's filmed. My arm taking that snap right then and there was filmed. I've had it on YouTube and
I
TikTok
was
for
gonna
a bit.
say, is it on YouTube? Maybe
Yeah,
we'll link it in the
yeah, we
comments.
we can put it in there. I'll send him like my TikTok stuff. But yeah,
There you go.
I kept it to myself for a long time. But even the ref was like, I really want to watch that, see if I missed it. He didn't miss anything, guys. Like it was 100% my fault. But here's the thing that I tell people in competition, especially because you and I are kind of sports oriented as far as like mindset. I think you'll get this. So, um, back when my stepson played football, every time they won, we did great. We came together. We're a team. But every time they lost, the refs, the refs, the refs. I finally said, so if it's the ref's fault that you lost, why aren't you thanking them when you win? Whoever is responsible for your losses are also responsible for your wins and vice versa. And it leads down to that person you stare at the mirror every day. And if you can't take accountability, if you have to blame the ref for every time you lose, you're not going to learn to win. That's why the champions of this sport, like when you watch them, there's a world champion. His name's John Brzenk. And when he goes up against our Canadian world champion, Devin Lorette, if you ever watched anything with arm wrestling, Devin Lorette is famous for arm wrestling the Mountain from Game of Thrones. Okay. So that's how, well, I mean, he's good. That's just when people outside of arm wrestling knew who he was after. There was a match that I went to in Las Vegas. It was this big champion thing. Like the winner got a 20 grand purse. They even put, dude, they put stacks of money between these guys of like, let's motivate them, right? Here's the money. And here's the thing, Brezink and, Lorette, they're squared up, right? Lorette gets a jump on him. And Brezink is kind of sitting there with his arm. He wiggles it a little bit. He realizes he's not in a position to get out of. He's not going to risk hurting himself. Did he fail by dropping his hand? Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure to some people, yeah. John sucks, blah, 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 blah. No, John studied how you have a fight style. And when you study your opponent's fight style, that's how you learn to beat them. And I always say, there's a rule with John Brzenk. If you beat him, it's only once. He's learned how to beat you the first time. And that's like the biggest thing. Like one of my favorite movies. Did you ever see Maverick with Mel Gibson back in the day? And
Yeah.
yeah, James Garner. Do you remember
Mhm.
the first of the movie when he came to the table, what he said to all the poker players?
No, I haven't seen that forever, but I definitely remember the ending
Okay.
when he got that royal flush, so
Yes, yes. So this is one of I mean, this is a scene in the movie that I imprinted on from back in the day, and not a lot of the people did. He came to the table and he said, "I promise I will lose for the first hour," and he did. So by the time he won, he learned everyone's quote unquote fight style. He learned what they do when they bluff, when they don't, when they have a good hand, when they don't. All these things he learned. So by the time it came an hour later, he learned how all of them play and now he can win. So I always say my like observation, my personality is a maverick. I go into a room full of people. I want to sit and watch all of them. I want to learn what they talk about, how their mannerisms are, if how they react when the person that they're smiling at walks away. Are they backstabbing them with their expression on their face? And let's be honest, guys, like I am the queen of like my facial expressions come with subtitles. There's no hiding what I'm thinking or feeling. Um, but that's what I do is I observe people's like I just call it a fight style. Not that we're going in a ring or anything, but when you learn people's fight style, it's because you're teachable. And if you're not teachable, you don't care about their fight style, you only care about yours. How many times do football teams sit and study the other team playing that they're going to play next week and study how they play? That's how they win. If you're not studying your opponent and only focusing on yourself, you're never going to learn to win. You're just going to repeat the same thing over and over again with a different result. Wait, what do they call that? Insanity.
Yep, no, that's definitely true. Like the biggest part of the coaching world. My school that I coached at for a long time was only 2A, small school, but we started a little film ring with a bunch of the other coaches, just like football does, because soccer didn't do it very often. A lot more now with technology, right? But not when I started coaching. And I had coaches from all over calling me. They're like, "Hey, do you have film on these guys?" Just because we would do that, and we started studying each other, and it was crazy. It started leveling the playing field a little better, not a whole ton when it comes to two-way soccer in the state of Utah, but it did level it out a little bit, and it gave people an opportunity to say, "Oh, hey, this is their strengths. What's our strengths so that we can counteract that?" So
And
definitely,
here's the thing, imagine your
definitely
players
understand
who
that.
said, "I came from a 2A, type of environment," and they could still be the next big player for Real. It doesn't matter. Like, are you teachable is what it all comes down to. But if you depend on, "Well, I didn't get a chance because of this." Alright, cool, so you blamed that. Did that ever make you better? No. The same energy is applied in putting an effort of taking accountability to grow as it does to push accountability on somebody else. But either way, you're only winning by doing one of those 2 choices. Everything's a choice, like, and it comes down to you, and as I prefaced before we started this recording, when I turned 18, I realized everything in my life is my fault, and the more I blamed people, it never made my life better. It sure as hell never made me happier, and I was like, "Why am I gonna keep doing something that doesn't directly make me happy?" And even when someone's like, "Oh, it's all Halo's fault," I'm like, "Yep, my fault, sorry. What are you gonna do about it? What would you like me to do about it?" And now we have a conversation. But if we constantly have this battle of power, well, the same thing happens in arm wrestling. When you see two people going at it and going at it and they're pulling and pulling and pulling. Well, here's the thing, they have a thing what's called a slip. That's where you let your hand go. So they put you in a strap, which straps your hands together. So even if you arm wrestle like this, your hands are strapped, right? So if people slip to put you in a strap, it forces you to have to use the strength outside of just your hands and your grip. But there are some people who have no structure of how to actually arm wrestle you outside of a strap. So they purposely slip to get into a strap. And so it's one of those, if you're going to constantly blame the ref for not in a strap or anything else, well, that's fine. But if you know your opponent's fight styles want to get you into that strap, you're going to find a way to get up over their hand so they can't have that chance. And there are some people that are like, don't get in a strap with that person because the moment that they do, they got you. And what are you going to do? Oh, he slipped and put us in a strap. That's why I lost. Or you just lost because you weren't the one today. Like everybody, in order to have a winning story, someone had to have the story of the loser. And how many times do we hear from our grandparents' generation or even our parents' generation? Because our parents are in the grandparent generation now. Do you feel old yet?
I My body tells me I'm old all the time, so
I still in my head, like I had a client who's like, "Yeah, I'm 25. I was born in 2000." And I'm like, "How are you 25 and born in 2000? Because I'm 25 and I was born in 1983." And so 'cause it's just like, no, we did not get to that point. And here's the thing, I don't know about you going to high school reunions. You see people who still look like they walked out of high school, and some people who are like, you look like you got one foot in the folks' home. What happened?
yeah, I haven't gone to a high school reunion yet. I've avoided those at all costs, but I
Oh,
still see
dude.
people from high school.
Dude, I love people, and the majority of my clientele in the tattoo world is still people like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever they call it. I call it the 7 degrees of somebody I went to high school with. It's like from a friend of a friend of a friend who I went to high school with is still like the common denominator at 18 years later, right? Like that's still like the backbone. So I wanted to go see all these people. And here's the thing, everybody who was like mean to me in high school was so nice to me because guess what? No one's the same person 20 years later. And if you are, that is the epitome. If you ain't ever going nowhere, you're never going to grow, and that's fine. Right? But, like, one of my friends, like, "I'm not going because so and so is an asshole to me." I'm like, "They're 20 years more mature now and have kids in high school. You really think you're gonna get treated okay, cool." But that just it has nothing to do with the person that they're accusing. That's them saying, "I haven't matured, I haven't grown, and that's all I'm gonna focus on, so I'm just not going to be around them," which is fine. That's fine. But it has nothing to do with that person you're accusing. Because all the people who were rude to me in school, like, and here's the thing, I didn't really have enemies in school, but also like girls are catty, right? And so even when girls were catty and I was nice to them, they remember that. They're like, God, I was so mean to you. And look at you're just nice. I'm like, yeah, you were just a mean person. It had nothing to do with me. Again, you just aimed it at me. And it was fine. Like I love having that no one has ever said I was an a-hole to them in school. I have a rule, do not ever have anything to screenshot, and have overuse. So yeah, go off on me in a DM or a text message. That's fine. It's okay. But I'm not giving you anything to screenshot to ever try to flip my script. And even if you did, that's cool too. So, I still have screenshots of people, accusing me of taking my spouse's life. And again, it had nothing to do with me. They were just in such denial. But if that's what they needed, I don't need to convince them otherwise. And that is where I have found so much emotional and mental freedom. I don't need people to like me. I don't need to be everybody's cup of tea. And here's the thing, when you try to please everyone around you, you start to lose yourself.
My wife grew up, um, make sure other people feel comfortable, right? And I think it was a Southern thing. Her mom's from Texas and Oklahoma, and it was more of that lifestyle. And it put a lot of stress on her. She would have a hard time sometimes, like, oh, this person, I don't know if they felt comfortable or not. And that's all she thought about instead of,
Hmm.
well, how do you feel? Right. And she's gotten over that.
It's
It's
growth.
a lot better
It's
now.
it's
Yeah.
your wife's growth journey. I mean, now don't get me wrong, in my profession when I'm tattooing people, yes, your comfort means a lot to me. And I'm the one asking, "Hey, do you need a pillow? Do you want me to get a bolster for your legs? Do you want me to lean you back a little bit? Is it warm in here? Do you need to turn on the AC?" I want people to have a comfortable experience, right? But that's why I also do consults. Are they comfortable with me? Because it comes down to, am I the right artist, for them? It doesn't matter if I feel like we're gonna jive and I could do this. I want my client to always have the ball in their hand. Am I right for them? Is what I do right for them, right? And so, like, um, yeah, I can relate to a certain extent, but I cannot go and dwell on everything and everyone in my daily life. Like, even one of the girls that works at the same salon suites that I do, she's like, you have a way of delivery and it's not sugar coated, it's very blunt. She goes, you don't sweet talk anything, you just speak your truth. And she goes, but I can see how that can upset a lot of people or come across harsh. I said, people pleasers are very taken by me based on, if I'm not people pleasing because that's what they do, all of a sudden they're somehow offended by that. I don't know. I don't understand the dynamic. But yes, when I meet people pleasers, and I'm not a people pleaser in like, I'm not going to say and do everything that makes you like me. If you like me, that's great. Like, it's the same as you can't lose a good client and you can't lose a good friend, right? But here's the thing, if one little thing or one misconception or one misinterpretation destroys your business, personal, or social relationship, then it was never there to begin with. And it's okay. It's the same as like, no one can destroy your marriage. You both contribute to that. No one can destroy your relationship with your child. That's between you and your child. If somebody is able to, it's because you've allowed it. And that is part of realizing that is choice. So when you build strong foundations, you can keep blaming the earthquake. But if you don't have earthquakes, how are you going to learn to earthquake proof that foundation?
Oh, for sure. For sure. A lot of life lessons today. A lot of life lessons. It's good stuff. Let's go ahead and give yourself a plug. Talk about your book again. What's in there if people wanted to read it, and then your TikTok and your socials, so that if people wanted to follow you, get some more, or even ask you a question, then
Sure.
they can get a hold of you. I can't even talk today.
And remember, guys, I love people. This isn't just what you see on a podcast or my social media. I'm bubbly. I'm happy. People say hi to me. I always love to give a first impression as far as you don't get a chance to do it twice. I'm definitely not one of those kind of people that you see me in real life and I'm ornery and I'm introverted. Um, I have my moments. I'm an introvert at home if I want to be, but I love being bubbly. I love talking to people. So just so you know, what you see is what you get. What my book is. So I'm a co-author. I'm not going to take all the credit, and I hope no one feels that way. Um, and because I am a co-author, this is called Trajectory 2. So that means there's already been another volume. I'm in volume number 2. They did hit Amazon bestseller on the last one. We'd love to do that with this one as well. And yeah, we'll throw the link in there. You can purchase it on Amazon. It's just barely under $17 and then free on Prime shipping. If you want to follow me on social media across the entire board, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it's Haylo, Haylo, tattoo artist. Everything spelled out exactly as it sounds. No fancy letters or symbols or anything like that. But yeah, if you guys see this, please reach out. If you want to get a tattoo, let's chat. Animals and realism are my passion. Um, but yeah, this is my first time being an author. This has opened up a lot of doors. And I want to personally thank you, Steve, for inviting me to be on your show today and share all the stories and our integration into growth together. I love hearing other people's success along with it. So, equally back where you had me as a guest, thank you for sharing your stories with me.
Of course, I'm not even close to going viral yet, but hopefully if you can reach one person, right? That's what we always say. If you can reach one person, totally worth it.
And
And
I've said that with every story I've told, especially with my late spouse. If that story changes one person to not make that decision, it was never in vain.
absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for taking your time today. Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy New Year. We just barely hit Christmas and New Year's is coming up, but 2026, hopefully a lot of people can take this and say, hey, what's my goals to become a better person, right? In 2026, and maybe this can help them out. So again, thanks for taking the time coming in or not coming in, but zooming in with me and going over all of this. And we'll see you guys next time.
You know what? End of 25 is end of the year of the snake. Shed that and all the everything with it. Let's get into the year of the fire horse, everybody. Horses are my muse.
There we
Let's
go.
do this together. Let's all grow and build together. I'll see you guys in 2026.
Awesome. We'll see you guys.